Hello, everybody. So, Duane is currently logging on in. It is now 5 o'clock. We can go ahead and start roll call. Let's see. Is it just us three in here right now? Let's see, WebEx.
I don't see anybody else.
Yeah. Okay, Marquise just kicked. We're about to start roll call in a minute. We'll let a few people. Do we just wait for a few people to get in? Because it's 5:01. Okay. Let me pull up last week's minutes also. Oh, here, can you take this? The marshmallows. All right, in about 1 minute, we'll do roll call. Okay. All right. It's 5:03. So I'm going to go ahead and start roll call. Is Preston present? Tyler? Grace? Farheen?
I'm here.
Adriana?
Present.
Tariq?
Present.
Adele? Alexia? Cole?
Present.
Karen? Courtney? Marquise?
Present.
Make sure I got everybody. Julian is no longer going to be on the panel. Let's say Tyler. Is there anyone on here that I did not call? Okay, guess we can call the meeting into order. So we types of motions. What's the first steps? All right, we did roll call. Now, are we going to now go into the minutes from last meeting. So, for
I could be
any-
recognized by the chair.
You're recognized.
Hi. Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't positive on what to
It's
say
okay.
there.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to point out that it doesn't look like you have a quorum. Which would prevent you from taking up any motions and voting on them. So anything that was on your agenda for a vote would have to be deferred to a later meeting.
Now, Counselor Frank, can you define what a quorum is?
I can, and actually, it's actually defined for this council within the authorizing ordinance and in the St. Louis County ordinances, section 630.050.3 says that a majority of all members of the council shall constitute a quorum, and a majority would be half plus one of the entire council, which has
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So actually we have 9 because one is no longer serving, and present is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
right, but it's a 12-member council, so it hasn't been fully constituted. And the unfortunately, the ordinance provides for all members of the council, and it has it's a council of 11. I mean, I'm sorry, 12, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm looking up the yeah, it's a council of 15 members, even though some members haven't been appointed yet. So a quorum would be 8. So do we have 8 at this point? Did anybody else join?
No, the count was 6.
So
So
fortunately,
I think
we
I'm
can't
saying
have a
that-
meeting without 8.
you could have a meeting and discuss, but you can't, but the council can't vote on anything, can't take up any motions and vote on them. You can have discussion about things, but you just can't vote on any motions.
Okay. Okay. So Dewan has joined the meeting. We already did roll call, Dewan, and we learned that we can't vote on anything. So we're not going to vote on our motion for the last minutes. And I know we had a vote for vice chair on the line, so we're not going to do that. So honestly, I think today, yeah, based off the agenda, we can just move into our next topics of really discussing the issues.
So I want to first and foremost, apologize to everybody for being late. I too was having technical difficulties. So, but as we kind of indicated from the last meeting, we do have a chair person in charge now, and so we'll just kind of fall back and Madam Chair, you can feel free to facilitate as you so desire.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. I too have been having technical difficulties all day. So if at any point you can't hear me, please let me know. So like Latasha said, it looks like we're gonna defer the minutes and vice chair to our next meeting, since we don't have a quorum. So I guess that means I am gonna go into talking about the issues, that we're gonna potentially advise on. Um, so essentially, our advisory council needs to pick a couple of issues that we would like to advise on. So I know we have talked about in the past, we've talked about drugs in schools, vaping, things like that. Um, were there other topics that other members specifically want to bring up so that we can potentially talk about? I'm happy to hear those. We can all talk about that. Are there any issues anyone's particularly interested in that want to bring it up?
Maybe an emphasis about like mental health slash maybe like bullying.
Okay, mental health, yeah, for sure. I saw your message in the chat, Marquise. Okay, so mental health, drugs in schools.
Can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I've been to like 2 meetings at once. I was going to, I think that was mental health, and I believe at the 2 meetings ago, if anyone remembers that was a long time ago. I did mention that as well, and I find that to be important. I think the council is also taking up a resolution soon about reaching climate goals as well. And making sure that that is in alignment with what was promised in terms of making sure we're meeting our goals for emissions and things like that. I think would also be important for us to consider as well.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. So climate goals. My other thought was I think we at one point talked about civil engagement, youth civil engagement from what I can recall from past meetings. Okay. So right now I have mental health, drugs in schools, climate goals, and then youth civil engagement. Okay. So I think we can definitely keep talking about these and different goals. I know we don't have everybody here. So I'm happy if we can to touch on that on our next meeting as well. Am I okay to go ahead and move to talking about the annual report? If anyone else doesn't have the one, you
Yeah, so I guess really quickly. So as far as the issues that the members brought up, one of the things that I was hoping to get from that is why each of you feels that the topics that you brought up are important. Like, and with those issues that you brought up, what exactly is it that you're hoping to be addressed specifically, and also how then do you feel that county government could assist to that end? So, for instance, if you're saying drugs in school, uh, what specifically about is it about drugs in school? Why is that a concern? Why is that important? What is it? What is it that you're looking to happen with the drugs in school? And then finally, how is it that you feel county government can assist or move forward with that goal? So if we could, briefly get that discussion going, and everybody can kind of chime in. If we all are in agreement that these are the major concerns affecting the youth, St. Louis County youth.
Yeah,
Does
absolutely.
that make sense to everybody? Does that make sense? I apologize.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about it. I did want to mention one more possible issue that we could take up, but I'm interested in, and we can definitely again talk about this at our next meeting with more members. But critical race theory, I know that's a really big topic amongst St. Louis public schools recently, and St. Louis schools in a general sense. So I'm happy to start off talking about that issue and why that's important. I know we've had some lawmakers in Missouri propose some legislation to essentially ban critical race theory under the notion that it's teaching Black and history and sorry, give me 1 second.
Okay, I'm typing. I didn't know it was gonna,
Oh no, I was trying to read it at the same time I was talking. Not you're okay. But it's really affecting the way schools are teaching race conscious and racial literacy in our schools. So I think it'd be really important as we see. I know a lot of us are either in college and high school, but we've seen a lot of racially motivated incidents happen at schools. And critical race theory was seemingly what was going to help with it. It was curriculum that was racially literate, and now we're seeing a lot of pushback amongst parents and some community members feeling that critical race theory is rather than what's the word? Rather than being a means to educate, is saying that critical race theory is somehow like superior in some way, and so the legislation being proposed is essentially banning the idea that a race can or sex is superior anyway, and teaching that, even though I don't feel as though that might be what critical race theory is itself. So I think this is a really important topic. I think it's really affecting a lot of kids and a lot of community members, and whether that be a resolution, a statement of support from the council, I think it's a really important topic that we can and potentially should take up. So I know we also talked about mental health, drugs in schools, climate goals, and youth civil engagement. So does anybody have any thoughts on race theory, one of the other topics we've discussed?
I would suggest putting the concept of critical race theory under racial equity in general, only for the purposes of like, and this is more perspective and opinion than anything, but much of the curriculum being called critical race theory, naturally is not critical race theory, and they are or have to do with methods of concerning diversity and inclusion, or basic Black history, and whether that is, or rather, the history of violence against Black and brown people. So I think the better discussion there is racial equity. And I think that it still remains a pervasive problem within our region, in our county as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I definitely think that we can make the topic a lot more broader and just to be racial equity in a general sense. I think what I meant was just I know that the council eventually is going to like we're going to have specific things to like suggest to fix an issue. Like I'm just kind of going based off the questions that are in the chat. So my thought was critical race theory could be one of those things, given it's important to like the direction that St. Louis County and is going with it. if that makes sense. But I totally agree with what you're saying. I think we
Yeah,
should make the
no.
topic more broad. It could also be like
Madam
a
Chair?
topic. Yeah.
And I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt again, if I could be recognized.
Uh-huh.
I would, I'm not sure that members of the public who may be watching can see what is in the chat, so I would recommend that if anybody's putting anything into the chat, then either the person who made the comment, read it out loud, or you read it out loud and attribute it to the person who made it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Latasha Newton made a comment about how we can frame topics that we find important. And they said, in regards to addressing, consider these questions. One being, why are the issues you choose important to you? Another being, what would you want to happen to abate and address the issue? Or what are your suggestions in fixing the issue? And lastly, how can St. Louis County government help in addressing the issues? Anyone else
Thank you,
have any?
Madam Chair.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me know. Does anybody have any other thoughts on the other issues? I'm happy to move along to some of the other issues as well.
Well, an issue that I found really important, like more locally, is like the impacts of like corporate construction on the environment, and how like a lot in my community and all of that, there's like been a lot of, and in St. Louis in general, there's been a lot of construction. I've noticed like the negative impacts it's had on the environment as a whole in terms of habitat loss and habitat destruction, and population destruction in terms of animals. And so that's kind of a topic that I've kind of been interested in, is just environmental protection and regulation of human construction on the environment, especially locally, but also in throughout St. Louis County as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I personally think that's, I think, a good idea. I feel like maybe the county should be more aware of the more environmental impacts that these different projects and developments have, and either take steps to either reduce them or maybe like invest in some more environmentally friendly developments, incentivize more green development that doesn't impact the environment in that way. I think that could be a good idea.
We definitely talked about the general topic of climate goals, so like Preston is saying, we can put it under that as well. Yeah, okay. I think we also discussed mental health as one of our topics. That's a really big one, I think, amongst the youth, as they say. So yeah, I mean, we can definitely discuss that. I, for one, think that maybe we can talk about mental health as that other states, counties, are deploying different mental health units in place of like law enforcement showing up in mental health crises, or with law enforcement, mental health trainings, as well as we can also maybe frame it or discuss it in a mental health in schools. I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that, but we can definitely talk about that as well. I know that's a major factor for our generation. Does anybody else have any thoughts about mental health?
I would say it's like far easier to get coverage for physical health, especially in Missouri, than mental health. Actually, I'm doing an English project about mental health, and I was researching an activist named Haley Hardcastle, who, when she was in high school in Oregon, she actually pushed for a law, and it was actually passed. It was a law that basically gives kids in Oregon 5 mental health days to take off rather than taking off like it's in the same sense you would take a physical health day off, like a sick day. You can take mental health days off, and I think that was like a really good way of showing how students and youth can kind of lobby for their own mental health through participation in like their local and state government. And I thought that was a really I thought that'd be hopefully one day would be an interesting law to be in place in Missouri and to other places.
I would agree. Does anybody else have any thoughts about mental health? Okay. If somebody does, please feel free to chime in. So we also talked about drugs in schools. I think we might have phrased it differently in a past meeting. That's just how I'm recalling it. Does anybody have thoughts on that? Tyler, I think it might have been you who brought it up. Oh, okay. Okay. So Tyler just commented in the chat. He's sorry for being late. He's been fighting with technology to get the sound on WebEx, but he's here now and he can hear. Tyler, are you able to speak? If not, so right. Just curious.
Yes, sorry, I've been, like you said in the chat, I've been fighting with it for a while.
No worries. I was just saying, and I could be wrong, but I thought that you might have brought up drugs in schools,
Yes.
at a past meeting, so I was wondering if you wanted to share your thoughts on that.
I just feel like it's a big problem. It just seems like, everyone at my high school's talking about it or talking about someone they know who's done drugs, and I think they're terrible. They mess up your life, and you make one bad decision and it can screw your whole life over. I just think they need to be out of this high schools. They need to be out of society in general.
Okay. My proposed thought to that is that maybe implementing programs that help kids navigate substance use issues
Absolutely.
and have resources that they can obtain in an attempt to like help just whether that be get clean or manage substance use issues.
And
That's my initial thought.
have to start these groups, like there's already some out there. We could just implement them into the policies already.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I agree with what Tyler said. I think obviously one wrong decision can ruin your life. But I have to say, in most schools, I think they do a fairly good job of spreading awareness. But I think it's more about just I would say it's more about the authorities cracking down on it and stopping it. I think at least in my school, in Ladue, there's a lot of awareness. There's Red Ribbon Week. There's lots of anti-drug awareness. But I would say, just recently there was a picture of one of my classmates going around, a picture of him actually smoking marijuana, and I think the reason people do it is just they see other kids that they want to be like doing it, and so I would say let's say a lot of schools spread awareness about it, but I think it's more about the crackdown and trying to stop it once it's already happened. Because I think a fair amount of kids know not to do it, but it's about stopping that spread. Instead of spreading awareness, also spreading the stopping the spread of drugs as it's happening.
I completely agree with you. There's definitely programs and awareness already, but like you said, the enforcement or the the stoppage of the usage would be helpful.
Okay. I think my thought to that was I agree. I just think that we also maybe need to focus not so much on being punitive, but rather restorative. I also think that substance abuse sometimes does come from a place of mental health. Um, just generally from my experience being in high school, college, around the community, a lot of kids may not even do it necessarily because they are trying to look cool, but rather that it's a coping mechanism that I've noticed. So offering mental health services, I think we could almost intersect the two topics at some point. But when it comes to drugs, substance abuse, and mental health, because I think they go hand in hand. But yeah, I definitely agree. Anybody else have opinion, comments, concerns? Dewan, did I cut you off? I thought I might have.
No, no. You're
I'm hearing
you're
things.
you're you're doing fine.
Okay, I'm
Absolutely.
hearing things. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? All right. So then the last topic that I'm looking at, and if I missed one, someone please let me know, is youth civil engagement. I know we all have talked about how do we get kids more civilly engaged, voting, participating. I think one major topic that comes to mind for me is just getting kids registered to vote when they turn 17 and a half. Earlier the better, or at least when they turn 18, getting them registered, making that accessible. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think the engagement of students and young adults is extremely important. It's not a political party. It's an everyone. I'm sorry. It's not a political problem. It's an everybody's problem. There's no side of the aisle that wants people to vote more than the other person. This is your duty and your right. You go vote. So I think we should be having programs or at least an assembly maybe once a year for the seniors at high schools or colleges to go vote. I think that could be a possibility.
Okay. I think it would, again, was a program that could be through a resolution at the county council, or if you were going to statement of support, something like that. Or whatever that may be. But something that promotes or guides civil engagement for youth and getting registered to vote. Yeah, okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns about youth civil engagement, their thoughts on it, recommendations, whatever it might be?
I think more councils like this, honestly, would get a lot of people involved in civil engagement. And I think that there just has to be just more opportunities, I think, for people to get involved. I think some people just don't know how to. And from there, they don't really feel like, once they realize that they don't like have any opportunities, they don't go searching for it. So I think if St. Louis County provides even more opportunities, then I feel like that would boost civil engagement for sure among young students and youth.
Absolutely. Okay. Is there any other question, comments about this topic? One of the other ones we maybe have discussed before we move to talk about the annual report? No? Okay. If something comes up, happy to hear it. So the next thing on our agenda is about the Youth Council's annual report. So essentially, hold on, I'm just pulling it up. According to the Youth Advisory Council's, the ordinances, purposes and duties, and the authority of director. I'm going to read this to you, and then we can talk about it. So 8.4 says the council shall submit an annual report on its activities and recommendations to the county executive and the county council no later than February 15th of each year, and may also submit additional reports as it deems necessary. For the 2021-2022 report, the council shall submit a 6-month report on its activities and recommendations to the county executive and the county council no later than February 15th, 2022. I am also going to put this in the chat. I'm just putting exactly what I just said into the chat to make it a little bit easier to understand. I'm going to do my best to talk about this. Dewan, Natasha, Counselor Frank, please feel free to butt in since I'm kind of operating off of memory and from what I understand. So essentially, as the advisory council, we will be advising. So we're going to do that in the form of a report or a brief. So there's an annual report, but there's also a 6-month report. Given that we just started, we're going to do our 6-month report in February. Given that we haven't had a lot of meetings, we haven't had a lot of time, it is most likely that this first report be generally just talking about some of the topics that we are interested in taking on, interested in doing work towards, even if that necessarily isn't concrete plans yet, but putting that into a report, as well as I from what I understand, I think we have a few more members to put on the council, if that's correct. So I know that's gonna continue to happen. So from what I understand, that's gonna be the report. And we can all, again, next meeting with everybody, have a conversation about this again. But I want everybody to be aware the council can also request additional reports from us. As of right now, that has not happened, but I'm just putting it out there. Does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns? Is there anything I missed that anybody who's aware wants to chime in about?
So I'll try and chime in just briefly. So as far as the report is concerned, you and I had discussion as to again, there hasn't been many meetings, so you all haven't I guess gotten into the actual work or trying to implement some of these things. But the report at this point, since it is time sensitive, it is just going to basically speak on what you all have done to this point, right? And so the report could include so the topics that were mentioned tonight, right? So the mental health, the bullying, and those sorts of things. So the report could, and again, this is up to you all how you want to shape and form and create the report. But it could, for instance, just indicate like, hey, we're just getting started, to this point. These are some of the topics or issues that we have discussed that are most important to us moving forward or in the coming months. This is how we plan to go about, fighting for change or making, recommendations for whatever, the outlined, proposed issues that you all brought up. And so, like we discussed, if you wanted to, Madam Chairperson, if you wanted to kind of put individuals into, small groups based on the topics that everybody collectively decide, hey, okay, let's address these first, because what I don't want to happen is that, everybody gets overwhelmed with trying to address each and every one of these issues. So in other words, if we say, hey, for example, hey, let's focus on, this is our top, second, third, I'll break everybody up, into groups based on that. And then they work on a plan of how they want to go about approaching or attacking those issues. So I believe, for example, someone spoke about, there's already organizations in place that deal with, what was it? Was it like drug groups or something to that effect? And so if I'm in that particular group, so then I may talk about how we're going to take what's already there, how we're going to hopefully implement it into this council. So as the report is generated, it'll have some of those components in terms of what it is that you would like to see from the county council in support of, what you all has suggested as being important topics. Is that kind of making sense to everybody? Or and please raise your hand or comment if not. Yes, I don't see any. Do I see some head nods, a hand raise, a thumbs up, thumb down?
It makes sense. I
Okay.
understand.
Thank you. Anybody else? Everybody got it? Okay, and again, so obviously since the council, we haven't really gotten into the meat of things in terms of actually doing the work and making these suggestions. And so the report to this point will simply just be like, hey, we've gotten together, we've had these discussions, these are the issues that we're wishing to address, and this is how we're going to go about doing addressing said issues. Now, once broken into different groups, you all are able, and Council Frank, please correct me if I'm wrong, but once broken into small groups, you all can communicate and work together on your portion of the report. And so once that happens, then your portions can be submitted to me. I will work along with the chairman to, put everything together, and it will at that point be disseminated to everybody, right? Because the final report does have to be voted upon and agreed upon by each council member before it goes off, to the main council for submission. So, am I?
Yeah, and I would say the report would have to be approved by a majority of the council. It wouldn't have to be approved by each member of the council, but a majority of the council. And I also wanted to say, Madam Chair, it appears that you had another council member join, and I think you have 8. Is Courtney on the council? Was she on
Courtney,
earlier?
she is, and she sent me a message. She was having issues, technical issues, like
Okay, I can
and
see
where
her
she
now.
wasn't able to. Okay.
So it looks like she's
Yes.
here now. So
I
you
apologize. I just rejoined.
right. So it looks like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 members, which would be a
Courtney is not.
oh, Courtney is not on the council?
Not on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Okay.
But I do have a question. So even though, let's say, the original ordinance says, hey, and we could talk off air if need be, but if let's say the original ordinance calls for 15 members, but let's say only 10 was appointed, do we then just go by that number in determining the quorum and such?
We can provide the council with the answer to that, or you, Dwan, to an answer to that. Yeah, outside of the meeting, we're happy to do that.
Okay. I just want to take a second. Courtney, do you want to introduce yourself just for a second so that the rest of the members know who you are, if you're willing to? Don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't want
No,
to.
that's fine. Thank you, Farheen. And I apologize, my audio cut out, so I did not hear the last 5 minutes. My name is Courtney Scott Camarada. I work for the St. Louis County Children's Service Fund, and my office has just offered to assist the council in some of their needs. We have programmatic staff and a data team that would be very enthusiastic in helping you with reporting, any data projects that you may want to do as a result of whatever your objectives are that you set. So I'm just here to be helpful if I can.
Thank you, Courtney. We all definitely appreciate you being here. So just to kind of summarize kind of what Dewan was saying, I think we can all, and I'm happy to split us into some groups, take on portions of the report, take on portions of different topics. I know I can't take a vote, but Counselor Frank, do I need to take a vote on topics, or can they just be general topics? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, you can't take a vote right now, but happy to talk offline with the department staff and you at a later time and talk a little bit about how you can, what your authorities are and that kind of thing, and what you can do. You can certainly, if there are people who want to form small groups on a topic, you could do that now. You just can't vote on what topics you're going to definitely take up, and you can't vote on who's doing each topic. So,
Okay.
But of course, if you want to have people volunteer to step up and handle a topic in small groups, you can do that.
Okay. Thank you. So is there any topic that someone's like they want to take up, they want to do specifically? Just to remind everyone, we have mental health, substance abuse or drugs, climate goals, youth civil engagement, and racial equity. Those are the 5 topics we've kind of discussed today. I'd personally like to do racial equity. Marquise, I know you were talking on racial equity. Would you also like to work on racial equity with me? You can say no. I'm just, you talked about it. Okay. So is there anybody else who's like also wants to do racial equity? We have other topics too. Okay. Please let me know. Marquise in the chat said he would. Okay. What about mental health?
I can work on that one.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you, Preston. Anybody else? Preston, if there, I'm also interested in mental health, so if you want to touch base about it, I'd love to. Okay. So we have mental health and racial equity. Tyler, you were interested in substance abuse. Is that something and drugs, that's something you'd like to maybe potentially brief on?
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. There were some audio problems.
Yeah, no worries. I said I know that you were interested in substance abuse and drugs. Is that a topic you'd like to take on for researching and talking about and for the brief?
Yeah. I do. I wonder how we would take that on, or are we talking about like researching it? If we would like to take that on as a topic.
So my initial thoughts are, and please chime in if everybody please chime in if I'm getting this wrong. I would say that some research, but also like we were talking about some of the questions that to consider that Latasha had mentioned that are in the chat, and I'm also happy to repeat if anyone needs it from earlier. trying to go based off those. Why do we think it's important? What are some things that we feel like council can do? How does it affect youth, recommendations, stuff like that, that we can go ahead and then and put into the annual report. So my thought is that everybody who's working on a topic, we'd write something up. And then once they're written up, they're going to be given to Dewan, and then Dewan and I, and if we have a vice chair at that point, would all have would talk about it, put the rest of this brief together. That is from what I understand. Does that make sense?
So like define the problem and write up a little bit about why we should be working on it.
Yeah, and then why we want to work on it, why we want to take it on, and then what we think possible things the council can do. Is from what I understand.
So yeah, if I could just butt in for a second. Yeah, so this initial 6-month report is basically it's about a plan, since you all haven't actually been working towards these issues. So basically, you're just advising the council that hey, these are the topics that we recognize and we came up with, that we feel are of importance to us. Here's the reasons why, and then these are the steps, or this is our plan in terms of how we wish to go about addressing these issues. So this initial report, is not going to be too involved in terms of, hey, we've gone out and we've done X, Y, and Z, because we haven't gotten to that point as of yet. It's just simply advising as to what the plan is, what the end goal may be related to the various topics that you choose. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much how that's going to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like Dewan has said to me previously, which was very helpful, was this report does not necessarily need to be the most well-crafted, like the most well planned out report ever. Like, I think the council understands that we're really fresh, we're really new, we're working at goals, we haven't had a lot of meetings, and we've been going through a lot of transitions. So I think that I just don't want that to be the biggest stressor. I think the council understands. So I think just defining what we want to do, making clear what our interests and topics are, and then at the next meeting, given we have a quorum, we can take a vote, and then that can put us to the part of where we can have like get that brief together, get that report together. But for now, I think we can break up topics, research topics, write up a little bit about them and why we're interested in them. Is that right, Dewan? Okay. Okay. So, and then Tarek said in the chat that he'd be interested in environmental protection, which absolutely. Does anybody else want to do environmental protection with him? If not, it's okay. Just checking in.
I'm sorry, who said environmental protection? I'm sorry.
Tarek.
Okay.
In the chat.
Gotcha.
Okay. So Tarek is, so then now I think, so just to refresh, Marquise and I are doing racial equity, Preston, and then a little bit of help from me. We're gonna do mental health. Tyler is taking on substance abuse. Tarek is taking on climate goals. I'm thinking Adriana and Cole would you two like to do youth civil engagement, or is there something else you're interested in that you would like to do?
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say. I'd like to do the civic engagement.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. Cole, would you like to do some? I know. Oh, okay. I know you're transitioning, but is there something you want to do specifically, or would you also like to do civil engagement?
Kind of just kicked me out of where I was sitting, but I would do the mental health thing. I would enjoy doing that because I know a lot of our schools struggle with that, especially being a private school and stuff.
Okay. So, okay. So I'm gonna recap, and then if I'm messing anything up, someone please yell at me. So for mental health, Cole, Preston, and a little bit for me. For substance abuse, Tyler. For climate goals, Tarek. For youth civil engagement, Adriana, and then for racial equity, myself and Marquise. Is there anyone I missed or anything wrong?
Just so you know, Madam Chairman, you have 4 minutes if you want to get the next meeting
Yeah,
in the books.
absolutely. Okay. So I know that a lot of us are in high school and in college. Everybody's winter breaks are a little differently, but we are looking at doing when we want to do our January meeting. Dewan and I had discussed potentially proposing, sorry, I'm just trying to look at a calendar. The 18th, which is a Tuesday. And from what I'm understanding, probably when everybody's going back into a routine.
It would have been the 19th.
Oh,
because
19th, I'm sorry.
You're okay.
19th. Wednesday the 19th. What is everybody's thoughts about that? I'm not sure what everybody's winter break schedules are, so if that doesn't work.
I think that would work for me at least, as far as I know.
I believe that will work. If I have any conflicts, I would contact you though.
Yeah, that sounds good for me.
So I think we can preliminarily decide on the 19th then. Yeah. Okay. If anybody does have any conflicts, please reach out.
Is it the 19th of January?
Yes, 19th of January.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that is pretty much our entire agenda. So we talked about, so we're deferring, just a reminder, we're deferring voting on last week's minutes or last month's minutes and vice chair to January, given that we have a quorum. And then we talked about mental health, drugs in schools, climate goals, youth civil engagement, and racial equity as potential topics. Different people are doing different portions. As you do your topic, please write something up with it. And then once you do get that to Dewan and I, at the next meeting, we'll vote on topics. And fill in any other members. Is there anything else that anyone wants to say before we adjourn for the day? No? And from what I understand, everyone, I think we're going to continue using WebEx moving forward. So I think this is our new space, from what I understand.
This is it, the final answer.
Anybody else? Latasha, Dewan, Council Frank, Courtney, if there's anything you want to chime in.
No, again, I just appreciate everybody, being patient as we, work through to, getting everything running smoothly and just continuing doing the great work that you all do. Appreciate it.
All right. I don't think I can move to adjourn without a quorum, so this is just a.
Madam Chair, yeah, you could just declare the meeting adjourned.
Okay. So then I'm gonna go ahead and declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks everybody for being here, and I'll see you in January.